Different. I'm actually going to talk to you about the Foch, the Tier 9 French tank destroyer. And as you can see, it's a beautiful thing. It is a non-turreted TD, so you can have a look at it. Back is generally quite weak, sides are weak, although it has got quite very flat panels on it. Now, I'm going to say something pretty controversial here. I believe this is the best Tier 9 tank destroyer. There you go. I've said it. It's out there. It's amongst it all. I'm going to actually give you some reasons why I think that, and I've certainly noticed it in gameplay. But let's have a look at the front armor. You're looking at 180 mils of armor thickness in the front. Now the sides is regardless. You don't worry about that with these things because you're only ever pointing at the enemy, and if you're not, you're going to get wrecked anyway. They don't have a turret, so therefore you must always be pointing at the enemy in order to shoot them. So if you can't shoot them, you're not doing any damage, and therefore you're going to get wrecked anyway. So let's forget about the sides. Let's forget about the rear. That's just part of the game with this tank. 1,550 hit points. Let's look at the gun. Now, this is where things get a little bit interesting. The gun itself, 8.69 rounds per minute. That's actually very good. And if we actually have a look at the damage, standard shell damage, 3 to 500 alpha damage, penetration 221 to 299 millimeters at 8.69 a minute. And the aim time is 4 seconds, which is pretty good. Dispersion's good too. View range, let's not even consider that, 2.77 or 277 meters. But the armor piercing, which is, the standard round in it, is 260 millimeters. Right, so your armor piercing composite rigid, which is our, let's say your premium round, is 320. There's not a lot that you're not going to be able to penetrate with that. I mean, that's even penetrating, most of the mouse in tier 10. That's a 120 millimeter gun. Right, let's compare it to something else, right? So let's pick an obvious choice straight away, tier 9 non-turreted TD. Let's look at the T95. Now, this thing copped a little bit of a nerf recently. I want to say recently, it was a few months back. But again, this has the toughest front armor in the game. It's got 305 millimeters, so it's significantly more than the 180 of the Foch. However, there are areas on the front of the T95 that you can pen, particularly under the lower part of the gun. So unless the tank is sitting dead flat right in front of you, you really have opportunity to pen it under there, and it pens quite easily under the front of the gun, the lower part, and also the hatch. The hatch is pennable as well, so it's not completely invulnerable, and that 300 millimeter front is really there. But let's actually look at other aspects of the tank. So we go to the gun. The gun itself, yes, it actually has better alpha damage of 480 to 800, and the penetration is fairly similar to that of the Foch, but the rate of fire, 4.77, it's almost half that of the Foch. And let's now look at other things which sort of come into play. The traverse speed doesn't get around anywhere near as well as the Foch. As everyone knows, this thing is like speed limited to 16 kilometers an hour, which is like, a VW combi goes faster than that. Whereas look at the Foch, we come back to the speed of this thing, 50 kilometers an hour. So you can actually get around. You can shoot, go and hide, you can pull back, you can do all those things in the Foch, which makes it amazing. Now, I don't have an OBJ 704 currently in my line out, so I'm going to go and have a look at the tech tree and show you. This thing was regarded as the go-to tank in tier 9 in terms of tank destroyers. And if we have a look at it, 1500 hit points, so it's actually less than the Foch. And look at the frontal armor, 120. Now, it does I'll give you this, it does have good angling on the front of the OBJ 704. but 120 millimeters, that's 60 millimeters less than the Foch. And remember I said, don't worry about the sides. We're not talking about the sides at this point in time. Now, if we go down a bit further, speed limit, 37 kilometers an hour. That means that the Foch is faster than the 704, again, getting into better position. Let's look at the gun. Gun damage, 480 to 800. Again, that's much better than the Foch, and the penetration is slightly better than the Foch too, but the rate of fire is again almost half of that of the Foch. So when you start talking about damage per minute output, that Foch has got it all over the OBJ 704. Again, it's another reason why I feel that that tank is a excellent choice. So you might turn around and say, yeah, well, let's look at the Tortoise. Okay, so the Tortoise is a great example. You've got better hit points. The frontal armor is better, but we still do have the cupola, or the little hatch at the top where the driver gets in and out. That's vulnerable, and everyone hits that. Also, too, in the Foch, I can actually pen either side of the gun mantlet on a Tortoise without a problem at all. So it's not impervious to a Foch. And if we have a look at the shell damage, it's very similar to the Foch. So the rate of fire is a similar thing. So you've got a gun that's very similar to the Foch, but the frontal armor, while it looks better, it's still got areas that are pennable. The Tortoise is a very good Tier 9 tank destroyer, but the angling of the front of it is not as good as the Foch. So if we go back to Foch, if we look at him and you pull him up on screen and we have a good look at him, he actually is a very good angular front. So if you look at that angle of the front, all you've got to do is go a little bit hull down, and you're protecting this lower plate here, which is right in the bottom section there. That actually is where it is a bit more vulnerable. But again, if you just have the front up in the air a little bit and the turret down, you're going to get even better bounce options. So with this tank, you don't tend to want to angle too much. You can wiggle a little bit and hope to catch on this massive gun mantlet in the middle here. This top sort of hatchy thing that sort of sticks out is a little bit vulnerable, but again, it's not one of those things that you easily penetrate. And a lot of people underestimate the amount of firepower this thing has, which just sits and goes bang and takes out most tanks. And if you're not doing 3,500 damage in a Foch per game, you've actually had a poor game. So that's why I believe this thing is such a good tank. And if we look at all the other options in terms of tank destroyers, where you're looking at the Russians, there's nothing else really. The Su-122 doesn't even compare to either of those. And I know a lot of people love that tank because it gets around, it's mobile. But again, if you want to look at the mobility of it, and you look at the traverse speed, 48, it's actually slower than the Foch, believe that or not. In the American line out, you've only got the T95, which is slow as a wet week. And the only other thing that people might compare it to is something like a waffle tractor. And you start looking at that, it's just got nowhere near the armor of that. Look at that, 80 is the armor. So we're not even on the same league, and that's not a non-turreted TD, so you can't really compare it. That's my thoughts on the actual Foch. So let's actually have a look at a game now. And this is actually a first class game. And one of the things that I think really shows this tank off is when you can dominate the battlefield in it. And it does it very well. And if we look at this map here, it's a supremacy match. Most teams either go A or C. And I didn't want to be caught out going the opposite direction to my team. I want to go with my team. They've gone right instinctively to C. I'm not going to buck the trend and go A because I'm not going to be the only tank that goes A and gets completely destroyed and look like a massive noob. So pushing on the right flank here up onto C, and I'm pushing on the outside here. You can see the speed at which we're getting along at 38 kilometers an hour, which is very good. And I'm just going to push right up to this bush here and see what I can see around the corner here. And straight away we've got a T30, which is looking over the hill there, trying to get some shots in. He's doing the same. He's thinking, well, take some of these guys out. Constantly looking at the map because I know someone's at B, and I want to ensure that no one is pushing. Look at this gun. Boom. No one's pushing up on our rear because, again, remember the rear and the sides are vulnerable. And so I'm honestly now looking at A and B thinking, we've got some tanks up there. How many of their team is really over here where we are? So I'm just playing it safe at this point in time. And I'm trying to get a real good gauge to where the team is because I don't want to leave myself vulnerable over to the sides. I'm constantly looking around. You basically head is like a chicken. It's constantly looking around for something to either hit or not. So now I'm thinking, well, I've got to get on the front foot. Look at that bounce from an IS-8 straight into the side of him, and I've got lock on here. This is pretty much my target, and I'm going to go for broke. So I've just locked in. Look at the gun reload time, and you can see that tank now is just being completely wrecked within a couple of shots of us. And he put his nose up there. I was going to take it off, but I decided against it. And again, I'm just trying to keep this rock in between us and the rest of the other teammates. Now, someone's come up on my rear. Again, I come around, finish off this T30, giving everyone grief down here. And I just kept driving away from the enemy because I knew they were on my rear, and I didn't want them to keep putting more damage on me because that's my vulnerable spot. Again, if you're not pointing the gun at an enemy, you can't shoot them, you can't kill them. So here, look at this damage to a T-54, and I just keep driving at them. There's another bounce. And I'm really now in a position where the T-44's gone, no, I'm out of here. He's running. The T-54, he's sort of backed off, but he makes a mistake here and comes back and tries to get away, but gets caught up. So I take him out, one shot. And that's 2 tanks we've killed now. And our team is pretty much doing a really good job here. But you watch, the Foch is really in its element. This is what this tank is made for. And yeah, he got a shot in on me, but I don't care because I just want to keep reloading and firing. And now the IS-3, he's in no man's land. I watch around to the side to make sure that other bloke's not coming in on the side of me. And here we're just going through, putting damage on. That's 4 kills now. And, we're looking for a 5th. And, the reload of the gun, you see it just keeps reloading. And they don't even look at me because they know they can't pen me. There's 5 kills. And so I'm now looking for a 6th kill, which sadly we don't get. But I was close to a 6th kill. Good game anyway, and well played by our team. And look, someone says, well played, Foch, or whatever it does. It was a compliment, which is great. But that tank, just everything that I spoke about at the beginning of this video, came out in this one little game that we get to see here at the end. So get into it, get into this whole line. It is bloody brilliant. I love it, and really enjoy playing this, and it's a keeper. So I hope you enjoyed as much as me, and I hope the video is helpful for non-turreted TD driving, and certainly driving this Foch. And remember, it's tier 9, it's not the tier 10 Foch 155. I'm yet to get there, but I will. See you around. Bye.